I'd like to call to order tonight's meeting of the Oconee County Board of Zoning Appeals for April 25th, 2022. I've been asked to read a statement before we begin concerning access to and conduct at county meetings, facilities, and property. Utter loud, obscene, profane, threatening, disruptive, or abusive language, or to engage in any disorderly or disruptive conduct that impedes, disrupts, or disturbs the orderly proceedings of any meeting and operations of any department or function of the county government, including without limitation, speaking when not explicitly recognized and authorized to do so by the presiding official of such meeting. In other words, you can't do that. I'm sure this group will abide by that. We will have no problems. But that's read before a lot of meetings. So thank you for your attention. First order of the agenda is approval of minutes for March 28th, 2022.
So moved.
Second. Motion to approve and second. Is there any discussion? Got a chance to read the minutes? Everyone agrees? All in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Approved 5-0. Okay, the way we proceed tonight, we have two issues before us. The way we proceed is we ask the applicant to make a presentation on what they're asking for. We then ask staff for their opinion on what's being asked and if there's any special circumstances or any conditions. We then give you folks, the general public, the opportunity to respond to the request and in any way you want. And then the floor will go back to the applicant to rebut any comments made, and then we will consider the subject before us. I guess I will reiterate this later on, but I encourage everybody, if you haven't signed up, please, you can't sign up now, but we'll give you an opportunity at the end to come up and say your piece if you want to say it. But when you get the opportunity, please do that. Please don't come up after the meeting and say, hey, you didn't think about that. Well, sorry, if you don't bring it up, we can't think about it. We don't know every kind of issue that might arise. So, without further ado, first item to consider is special exception application number SE 22-003. Falk and Foster. Victoria Farmer is requesting a special exception to construct a 172-foot monopole telecommunications tower, 182 feet top of lightning rod. TMS number 285-00-05-001, an unaddressed parcel with the closest address of 315 Hopewell Church Road, Westminster, South Carolina. Is Ms. Farmer here? Ms. Farmer, please. If you would state your name, please, for the record.
Yes. Victoria Farmer. I'm here from Tennessee today. I appreciate the members allowing me to speak this evening on behalf of Verizon for the approval of this new telecommunications facility. As you mentioned, Verizon is proposing to place a 172-foot monopole self-support antenna structure with a 10-foot lightning arrestor and associated ground equipment within a 60 by 60 fence compound along Hopewell Church Road. The purpose of this proposed antenna support structure will be to provide a solution to a gap coverage in the southwestern portion of Oconee County along US Highway 123. I ask that this consideration of this application should not be limited to examining the design and location of this project. Quality service has become essential to the critical infrastructure necessary for the needs of not just Oconee County residents, businesses, and visitors area, but also to enhance public safety and emergency services.
Ms. Farmer, could I interrupt you, please? Can everyone hear Ms. Farmer?
I'm having a time.
I don't think the mic is on for some reason. Somehow we... I can work on that.
Can you hear me now?
The regular mic?
Mic is barely.
I haven't seen it. Well, here's the working fine.
Yeah, this one.
Technical difficulties.
Smoother.
Hey. We good? Are we good?
Can everybody hear now?
Can you hear me now?
Okay,
Great.
thank you for the interruption, I'm sorry.
Well, I won't, do I need to repeat everything I just said?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Given the design, location, and benefits that will be provided by this proposed site and compliance with the requirements, the conditions, and specifications of Oconee County statutes and all applicable state and federal laws, Verizon respectfully requests a recommendation of approval for this application. Does anyone have any questions for me?
You don't have any questions at this time? We've all received the packet, went through exhaustive details. Staff, is there any comments from staff on this proposal?
This application is for just a special exemption. There are no variances being requested by the applicant. The entire package meets all the standards, so there's no request for, any variation from that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Farmer.
Thank you.
Is there any, I have no one signed up to talk on this subject tonight. Is there anyone who wants to say something about this proposed tower? Anyone at all? Yes, sir, please. Please state your name when you come up.
My name is Rod Lenz. It is a great thing that you want to put a tower up, because even today, my next door neighbor fell in her yard, screaming for help, no cell service. You know, we've lived down there forever with no cell service, no internet. You know, we're not that far from Atlanta, and we have nothing. It's amazing. So I'm sorry, but if anybody complains about having cell service, that's ridiculous. So, thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment? I'm going to close the public comments then. Ms. Farmer, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, sir.
Okay. I think it's time for us to consider this. Is there any discussion before we go into our formal questions? Any discussion on this? Pretty straightforward request. We've done it before. Okay, so we have four questions we go through to formally evaluate this request. This request is in accordance with the comprehensive plan and consistent with the spirit, purposes, and the intent and specific requirements of this chapter, to include the definition and intent of the district in which the special exception is being requested. Do we have a motion in the affirmative?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Hearing none, all in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. Say aye. It's 5-0 in favor. This request is in the best interest of the county, the convenience of the community, and the public welfare. I have a motion in the affirmative, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
5-0. This request is suitable for the property in question and designed, constructed, operated, and maintained so as to be in harmony with, appropriate in appearance to the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
5-0. This request is suitable in terms of effects on highway traffic, parking, and safety with adequate access arrangements to protect streets from undue congestion and hazards. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
It's 5-0. Based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed special exception be approved?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
5-0 approved. Okay, the request of the special exception is approved. And those of you who are here interested in this issue, you may all leave if you care to, because the next one's going to take a while. Likely to take a while. Prejudge it. Okay. Before we start on this, let me just state this is a continuation of a request that was made several months ago concerning a development off Ellenberg Road. When we concluded before, we were had listened to all the input and we're in the process of trying to decide, and we said, hey, we can't decide because of issues like, does the county really have a prescriptive easement, and perhaps are parties involved able to reach some sort of agreement that we don't have to worry about. So we're here again tonight to continue that hearing. We've heard all kinds of input. We've decided to kind of go back to the beginning and say, okay, we're going to hear from the requesting party. We're going to hear from anyone else who wants to say something. We'll hear more input from the county on what the issues may be, and then we'll consider everything we've been told and try to reach a decision. So let me read the application again. Variance application number VA 21-011, continuation from 124-22 BZA hearing postponement. Ridgewater Engineering and Surveying. Joe Meters is requesting an 18.1-foot variance from the 50-foot right-of-way for the entrance of the subdivision due to the end of the existing road not making full access into the property and only having a prescriptive ditch-to-ditch right-of-way. TMS number 150-00-01-459, an unaddressed parcel with the closest address of 599 Ellenberg Road, Seneca, South Carolina 29672. Okay, for someone from the applicant like to make a statement.
Should we not determine our jurisdiction first?
Pardon me?
Should we determine our jurisdiction?
We'll do that. We'll do that after their presentation.
Thank you.
Now, can everyone hear now?
No.
The mic is still isn't working.
Test
right.
1 2. Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
I could use a little more volume, but I'm getting old.
Is there more volume available?
I mean, I can lean into the mic.
I just want to make sure everyone can hear back there without undue press on you and other folks who may want to talk.
I don't mind a shout.
That's all she's got.
That's all we got.
Test 1 2.
Okay.
Test 1 2. I'll try and speak up.
If you would, please.
All right. Good evening, board members, respective staff, and members of the public. Thank you for your time and consideration as we come before you seeking this same variance from a few meetings back. My name is Rhea Smith. I'm a member of the development team at Lake Huey Real Estate. I have with me tonight on our development team Andy Lee, broker in charge, owner of Lake Huey Real Estate, and our counsel, Larry Brandt, seated behind me. We have made multiple efforts, offerings to come to terms with the Ratliffs, and unfortunately, we've reached an impasse. So I'm here today to present to you our criteria for this parcel to be granted a variance based on our individual case of unnecessary hardship of an ordinance. I feel confident at the conclusion of this presentation, we'll make a clear explanation of each of the findings of the 4 general criteria to grant a variance. Before getting into the criteria, I'd like to clarify that the purchase of this parcel predates the existing road ordinance according to a member of the Oconee County Planning Commission. At the time of purchase, no variance would have been needed to go straight into construction. However, given that we entered one of the most severe economic recessions in U.S. history, it would have been very unwise timing to do so. Here is what specifically we are requesting a variance on. Inside your packet, the easy thing to do is pull it apart. I've labeled on the side there. You're looking for item 3 in your packet. We're asking for a variance for the width of the right-of-way on a small portion of the road we are building. The vast majority of the road will have a 50-foot right-of-way. Understand we're asking for a change in the width of the right-of-way and not a change in the width of the actual paved road surface. So starting with criteria A, there is an extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. So you can see, and we've got it pulled up here, the parcel itself is a peninsula and is bounded by water on all sides. The peninsula is narrow in a small portion of the parcel and is unique in that the property line is the center of the road. As per County Roads Department, the road is maintained by prescriptive easement. These conditions are extraordinary and exceptional because of the limitations created by geography and topography within this parcel. I remind the board that the way a parcel of land lays, the geography, the topography, there are both acceptable reasons for granting a variance. Next, number B, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. In the geographic vicinity of this piece of property, most roads have a 50-foot right-of-way because they're not geographically constrained. This property is bounded by a body of water. Most parcels in the vicinity are not bound by water on both sides. Because of the unique geography of this parcel, meeting the current road ordinance therefore creates a scenario which meets the criteria for granting a variance. Next, number C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Without granting this variance to the road ordinance, the application of the ordinance will unreasonably restrict the use of the property. Again, the property was purchased prior to the ordinance being adopted. If you'll reference the deed restrictions, which is item 7 in your packet, that's the very back pages, you'll see that these restrictions are designed in mind with an end use for a single-family residential development, which was and still remains the intent behind this purchase. The developments in the vicinity of this property have larger home sites and larger homes. The application of this ordinance effectively prohibits building like kind or similar developments for which this property was purchased for, as per the deed. And finally, D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. The community will be like kind of the others in the area that we have developed, such as Harbor Oaks, cottages at River Birch, Point Harbor, and Spring Hollow, all located along the Knox Road and Ellenburg Road corridor, thus not affecting the character of the district. Granting this variance will not be a detriment to the public good as there is no further impact to the public. Given the unique peninsula geography of the parcel, granting the variance will allow access to what is essentially a dead-end road. Here's a brief overview of the variance requested as it relates to the Ratliff's neighboring parcel. Number 1, the proposed improvement will relocate the existing edge of the county pavement to provide the Ratliffs more area to maneuver outside the county-maintained roadway. Number 2, we're going to extend the Ratliff's current driveway to meet the new roadway, so that is then contiguous from his drive to ramp. Number 3, we will install a cul-de-sac at the termination of the road. This will be located 100% within the boundaries of our parcel and does not encroach onto the Ratliff property. The general public would have access to this cul-de-sac and it will be deeded as such. This will certainly benefit the Ratliffs and their customers to be able to turn around there. However, Jimmy states in a letter to the public that 80% of his customers arrive by water, so it may be more advantageous for his delivery truck drivers to make that loop. Number 4, we're improving the affected area of an aging county road to current county specifications, an improvement to the current conditions of the roadway. This improvement is at no cost to the Ratliffs or the taxpayers. In closing this part of the presentation, I'd like to remind the board that the criteria for a variance exists solely within the explanation of the 4 criteria I have covered at length earlier. There has been an abundance of public misinformation, untruths, and outright falsehoods around our request. I implore you to solely consider the truthful information presented as it relates to the 4 criteria for a variance. At the root of the matter, this parcel has significant geographical and physical constraints. The road ordinance more than creates an unnecessary hardship. The road ordinance established after the purchase of the property unreasonably restricts the use of the property. It is under these 4 criteria alone I'm asking for your consideration in granting this variance. And I believe we've firmly made a solid case for approval. Thank you so much.
Any questions? Questions at this time? Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask county staff to provide any input they may have. One issue, Mr. Root, I guess, is prescriptive easement. And does the county have a prescriptive easement for the road?
Mr. Chairman, if I may just retain my seat.
Sure.
I expressed the opinion on during the January meeting. Nothing has changed with that opinion, which was to the effect that the county's corporate or institutional memory or knowledge is that it has a prescriptive easement to the edge of the payment to the end of the payment, abutting the property that's to be developed. I understand though, at that time I had one affidavit from Jan Ratliff. I have another one now. I believe her name was Lori Ellenberg Bright, that calls that into question as far as where that prescriptive easement ends, if it ends somewhere west of that. And that's all I have. I'm not a final arbiter or fact finder in that regard. I can't make a decision. And just to make my role clear, I'm here to, as best I can, help with the integrity of the proceedings, to make sure it goes smoothly. There's able counsel here for both sides, and it would be, just not right for me to advocate for any particular position. I'll answer any questions I can. But as far as the facts on that prescriptive easement issue, that's what we have.
No, it's kind of unclear as to what.
I would say, I wouldn't even use that moniker on it. I would say we've got, the county maintains that it has the end of the pavement, but I do understand that we have sworn statements provided by Mr. Ratliff's side, we'll say, that contradict that.
Okay, another issue is lost my train of thought. Another issue is the nature of the road and the right-of-way and what that all means. Can someone explain for me what the proposal means in terms of a navigable road as opposed to what the right-of-way means? What right-of-way means?
Is that you, Mr. Reed?
No.
I would be glad to. We also have Kyle Reed from our Roads and Bridges.
Reed, Mr. Reed, I'm sorry.
That's
Would you like to comment on that?
Sure. So navigable road being the road surface shoulder area for a car to correct, not the it's not necessarily the traveled way, but if a car does run off, it can correct. Right of way being the area that it takes to maintain that road and utilities and all those things that come along with a road.
So the proposal is for a fully navigable, correct road. The question is right-of-way allows the county to, like you say, maintain the road. In general, allows the road to be widened if necessary, if the county wants to do it, or allow utilities to be run, that kind of thing.
Yes, it gives us the right to allow widening, raising the surface, lowering the surface, culverts, drainage, any of that stuff, and then utilities. Again, when we obtain right-of-way, then we have the right to allow subsurface utilities.
And you've reviewed this, and to the extent necessary, you'll be able to run utilities and that kind of thing to the new development, given the narrow right-of-way?
I believe the engineer would be better to speak on that than I would. I haven't seen where all the utilities would run or anything else. I don't think that it's gotten that far in the plan.
It hasn't gone, I don't think it's gone that far.
I don't think it's gone that far in the plan phase. I wouldn't be able to answer that
See,
without reviewing a plan.
okay. Okay, does anyone have any questions for?
Mr. Reed, one quick question again. I just want to make sure, because this has been one thing that's really kind of thrown me off a couple of times. Did we ever determine that this roadway, at some point, the county turned it over to the property owners? And so I guess I'm still saying, is this going to be a county road, or is this going to be a part of a county road and then the rest of it's going to be private?
No, no sign that we ever turned it over to the property owners. No records on that end. No, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure of that, because at one point, I think maybe a time or two before this, that was kind of up in the air. Whether if it was deeded over, if it was not deeded over, if it was just the county walked away from it and so the property owners took it over. So you're saying it is definitely a county road?
To our institutional knowledge, yes, sir, it is a county road. All the way to the end is shown on the plan.
Thank you.
If I can summarize where I think it is, and if folks from the county can correct me, that road used to be a state road before the lake was formed. It was a state DOT road that went on past where it ends now, on across the valley, wherever it is, before the lake was formed. Then the lake was formed, and the road was abandoned by the state, and the county assumed responsibility.
So
That-
generally,
Have I got that
and
right?
I can speak generally, well, first, I've contacted the state and they don't have any record of Ellenberg Road, that shows that it was a state road. Now, all the institutional knowledge again says that it was a state road. As far as anything where the state abandoned their maintenance responsibility and gave it to the county, again, there is no record that shows that. The state did not have any records as such, and we don't have any records as such, to that end. So it is institutional knowledge that has led us to, that we own to that point of the road.
But nothing says that, I mean, that road had to be originally built to extend further. It wasn't built the way it stands now, and there's an issue with whatever it is, the last 100 feet, whether or not that's, the county has a prescriptive easement over that. The road was originally put in by someone, presumably the state, to be a state road, or be a road, even though there's no record of it.
That is the understanding that we have.
Last 100 feet wasn't put in as a driveway for the business down there.
That the road continued on and went over to the right. As you look at the property, it went over to the right. There's still an old roadbed there, so it did continue on from that point.
Okay.
Just not straight up over the peninsula.
Have I misstated anything there, folks? Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Reed? Thank you, sir. Do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Does that mean that road was a through road to the other side of the lake that connected somewhere else, or was it a dead-end road 200 yards down the road?
I believe it means it was a state road that went across the valley
And connected to other
and
roads?
connected somewhere. I don't think we know where it went.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was that or if it dead-ended 200 yards down.
I don't think there's any evidence that says that's the case.
If it was there before the lake formed, it went somewhere.
Yeah, it went somewhere. Even though there's no records, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
It probably had a state number or something.
might have had.
If I may add one more thing,
Yes, sir.
Also contacted Crescent to see what records they had, and they didn't have anything that showed a continuation or anything else like that, or any records in kind to that.
But there's an old
for
road, I
us.
didn't realize that, there is an old roadbed running through the Arrowhead property.
I believe it goes off into the lake. As,
Yeah, okay, okay. Thank you.
sorry.
Okay. Mr. Coley, anything else that staff wants to bring up on this subject?
It's all the same from the last, so it's in the backup for everything we put in originally.
Okay, okay. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. If in fact this is a county road, what's the difference between how this application should be viewed if it's a county road versus a private road? What are the ramifications of that?
Mr. Chairman, if we
Please,
could.
please, Mr. Rubin.
There are probably a number of different ramifications, obviously, who's going to maintain the road. There'll be, the county changed it, and Kyle, you can speak to this, I think it was 2012 or 2013, where all private roads had to meet public road standards. So the quality and nature of construction would not change any. Obviously, with a private road, it could be a private drive, it could be a private driveway, something that would require less right-of-way perhaps, if it were private. So I don't know if that's responsive to your question or not, but as a public road, which the county is holding the position that it's a public road to the end, if it's going to be reconfigured as proposed now, widened in any way, then it's going to have to meet that 50-foot right-of-way, which is a big difference. But I don't think, if we're looking at a private road with a similar number of structures in there, it's still going to be a 50-foot right-of-way. Is that accurate, Kyle?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for staff? We can ask further questions later if we have the need. Okay, now proceed for public comments. I guess I'd say we've had a lot of comments in the past. We've got thick piles of emails, that kind of thing, and everyone's had a lot to say. So if you've got something new to say, by all means, please bring it up. If you feel a need to say something, please do. But bear in mind, we've had lots of input on this in the past, and in the interest of time, let's try and be cognizant of that. I'd like you to be be mindful that typically we hold to a 3-minute time frame. If someone has like a general comments that cover a number of areas, we'll certainly let you go past that, but keep in mind 3 minutes is a nominal time. First person to have signed up is Mr. Ken Charles. Is that you, sir?
That's not me, that's Mr. Charles here. I was just gonna say my piece and let public comment occur. If you want to hear from me, get that over with,
You're Mr. McDuff?
I am.
Yes, Mr. McDuff. It's going to be part of public comment, but if you want to be first, you can do that.
Since I'm counsel for the. I hate to cut in line in front of anybody, but I did. I apologize to you. Well, I didn't hear any groans since you saw me up here again, and I'll try to keep my comments brief. You know, we've been very quick to elide over the real issue in this, and that's whether or not this body has the authority to grant a variance dealing with this portion of Ellenberg Road. And I'd like to draw your attention to a couple things. I don't want to plow new ground, but I think that what we first heard is we have a lot of conjecture. We have nobody who can identify this by any public record as ever having been a state road. Any transfer of that road or default transfer of that road to the county at any time. Or, in fact, if we look at the empirical evidence on the ground, I don't know how many of you have actually visited Ellenberg Road and driven down that roadway, is that you can see where that double yellow striping ends, the nature of the roadway changes dramatically from that point onward. And I think it's over 700 and some odd feet we're talking about. For a long period of time, and you can see the affidavit that was provided, there was an end of county maintenance sign near where that road striping ended. If you look at it past that point, the road nature of the pavement, the width of the road, the quality of the paving, all those things change. And in fact, the only evidence we have that's been presented to this board is that the Ratliff family, Mr. Ratliff Sr. was the one who undertook the paving of that road at his expense. That's the only thing we have. If you look at the empirical evidence, there's not a single document out there that says this was a state road, became a county road, and the county has the right to govern this road, maintain it, change the dimensions of it, anything else. In fact, what we have here is we've got a road that's partially a private drive, that's partially on property owned by not even the applicant, by the applicant's perhaps predecessor in interest or soon to be predecessor in interest, and the Ratliff family. And that road is bisected by those two property lines and has been used, maintained only by the Ratliff family since the time that road was paved there in its present condition, probably close to 40 years ago. If there is a shred of evidence of county maintenance on that road, it doesn't, I implore you to try to find it. It doesn't exist. The county sign, and I'm sure Mr. Brandt will show you that county sign, the end of road maintenance sign was moved by somebody at some point in time to the beginning of the Arrowhead property and then disappeared. We don't have an answer to who moved it, but for years and years, it sat near the end of that road striping up farther west on Ellenberg Road. Institutional knowledge is not a basis upon which this body can exercise jurisdiction and grant a variance in this thing. As Mr. Root said, this is an open question, an unclear question as to what this body can do and what it can't do, what it has authority to do. In light of the fact it does not have any clear right, the county does not have any clear right over this roadway to, number one, change the dimensions of it. Number two, change the proposed course of it, of this roadway. And as you heard, in fact, if the county says this is our roadway from henceforth, to also, if they, in its own act of fiat, decides that they want to widen the road, then encroach upon the Ratliff property and engage in an unconstitutional taking of property. This body is not empowered, with all due respect, to grant this variance. It just does not have the evidence before it, aside from the criteria that have been mentioned by the applicant. And I know Mr. Ratliff, Jay Ratliff, is going to talk again about the issues, the criteria, and not to plow new ground. But the threshold question this board has to reach is this a roadway over which we have jurisdiction to grant a variance, not only to change the dimensions of it, but to also change the course of it to deviate from its existing location. And without getting into all the other things, those are questions you're going to have to answer. That would be the threshold question that you have to answer. And if this ends up, and this isn't a threat, but if it ends up, the parties end up in a judicial proceeding, that is going to be the threshold question that some court, jury, or judge is going to have to determine in this thing. And that's what you're charged with having to do tonight. You're not in you're in an unenviable position in this thing, because you have somebody who wants to develop property and you got somebody who doesn't want to agree to what is going to change the essential nature of that road, a very narrow roadway to begin with, a lot of twists and turns. But I will stand here before you and say, ask yourselves this question that you have to answer before you can move on to vote on this thing, is what authority does the county have, do you have as a body representing the county, to vote to grant a variance on roadway that the evidence hasn't shown is anything but a private drive? I will close, I'll end. I probably went over my 3 minutes. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them and answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to sit down and defer to everybody else.
Any questions for Mr. McDuff? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Charles.
Thank you, sir. My name is Ken Charles. My presentation hopefully will be in 3 minutes. First part of it is I am here in support of the Ratliff family. I have known them for 40, 50 years. We'll talk about the road. Everybody's talking about the road. I've gone up there, driven down the road. The gentleman that was just here is right. The state road stops. There's 700 feet of road that John Ratliff Sr. paid for. Take this, the state road, which is 700 feet up the road, is 18 foot wide. The 700 feet that Mr. Ratliff paid for himself is 16 foot wide. Okay? So that's the end of my presentation to that point. What I want to call your attention to, I have worked fire rescue for 50 years. I eat, sleep, and breathe fire rescue. I'm crippled up now, bad bones, and all this good stuff. But Pickens County, now in Oconee County, we think that we're the top of the heap. 25 years ago, Pickens County passed a regulation pertaining to subdivisions being built in the remote areas. It specifically says an entrance road has to be wide enough for 2 fire apparatus to pass without hindrance. If there is a cul-de-sac, that cul-de-sac has to be large enough for the largest fire apparatus to continually turn without having to stop, back up, make a 3 or 4 point turn. Now, I mentioned some fire trucks. An engine, a long time ago we referred to them as a pumper. They're 8.5 feet wide, all right? A ladder truck, almost 48 foot long, almost 9 foot wide. So now then, take this into consideration when you're wanting to grant access, when you're taking a man's property, and you're not taking into consideration, we have a term in the fire service called target hazard. That's when a large amount of flammable and or combustible material is in one location. If you've never fought a fire on a lakefront property, the wind will suddenly appear. And if they're built close enough, you won't burn just one, you burn 2 or 3 of these structures. So I want you to take that into consideration, and I'd love to take it all the way to the county council to pass an ordinance to that effect. Because these homes are built to burn. There's no doubt about it. I know one of our fire standards because of construction, because of the quality of material. These homes are built to burn. We didn't work at my house. I asked the builder, I said, we want to make an addition, going to add a garage. I said, I want to put sprinklers in it. He turned the job down. Said, no. You know, if you build a home today and put sprinklers in it, you'll find out what your homeowner's insurance will do. Statistically, in 5 years, the cost of the sprinklers are paid for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Lost my list already. Here we are. Mr. Ratliff, Mr. Jay Ratliff.
All right, Jimmy's going to hand a letter out that has been sent to the board. I'm not going to go through the entire letter, just the second portion of it.
We got a chance to review it.
Mr. McDuff has gone through the first portion, which is really with respect to ownership of the road. So, first of all, I'm Jay Ratliff, Edward John Ratliff Jr. My father was John Ratliff, the founder of John's Marine. I'm also the family spokesman. I'm a property owner of 599 Ellenberg Road, and I'm also a licensed professional engineer in the state of South Carolina. And that'll be important in a moment when we talk about some of the drawings that were provided. Practicing engineer in the state for over 20 years, so that qualifies me with my background, education, and experience to be able to interpret some of the misinformation that has been provided so that I can help clarify it for the board. So first of all, if you go to attachment 6, that's where I'll start in your package, if you can pull the drawing up. So attachment 6 is a Goldie and Associates drawing that was provided, a description or design of the property and the road. A few things I want to point out on this drawing. First of all, you see all the vehicles that are on there. That's the boats, the trucks, the maneuvering on John Ratliff's property. If you've been down there, then you kind of know what we're talking about and you've seen it. There's a boat ramp on the far right of the shop that Jimmy uses to pull the boats out of the water to be serviced and then back them into the shop. As we've discussed several times, it requires the boat to be pulled out of the water to be serviced. You can see the little UPS truck on there for parts delivery, motors, items that need to be put on boats. The blue line on the drawing is the Ratliff property line. So when we talk about the private driveway of the Ratliffs, that's that blue line that you see going all the way down through there, and what John Ratliff has maintained. And admittedly, John did pave on the adjacent property owner's property, and has for a long time. And the Ratliffs have used that as part of the private driveway, and Jimmy uses that to maneuver his boats around, and has been for 40 years. On the drawing, I highlight there's no prescriptive easement. We've talked about that enough. I think the board gets the point there. And then one additional piece of information that's difficult to put together unless you overlay all the drawings together, all the different designs, the different engineering firms that have looked at this, is there's only 22.8 feet that we're talking about in this narrow strip, not the 31.9 feet that's been described by the applicant. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a second. If you go to the next attachment, attachment 7, you'll see all of the, here's some pictures of Jimmy and Cameron maneuvering boats on the property. The picture 1 is a 20-foot pontoon boat being serviced in front of the shop. Picture 2 is standing right in the center of the right-of-way. You can see the boat to the left is Jimmy's boat, and then you can see the truck, which would be right in the center of the road. So having 200 cars a day coming down through this, you can clearly see there's an impediment with Jimmy's truck in the middle of the road. And then picture 3 is just a typical day with customers delivering boats and picking up boats. And then picture 4 is a 2008 photo from Google Earth. It's just a historical representation where you can see that the Ratliffs have been utilizing this as a private driveway for over 40 years. So you can go yourself and just pull this up on Google Earth, go to Street View, and you'll see the photos that that's the way this property has been maintained. Now, if you go to Attachment 8, Attachment 8 is a scale drawing of the different designs that have been provided to try to solve this road problem. This is the original design provided by Ridgewater Engineering for a 50-foot right-of-way. You can see from going from right to left, the 50 feet. The 50 feet actually starts off into Lake Kiwi. And then if you start subtracting from there, you subtract the 18.1 foot variance, and then you get to Kiwi Full Pond at 800 feet. And then from there, going back, it's a 9.1 foot gap before you get to the backfill activities that occurred. And then from the 9.1 foot gap of the backfill activities all the way to the left, then you get to the FERC boundary, which is the original 804 before the backfill activities occurred. And then you go more left and you can see the truck that's parked there on the private driveway, and then the corner pin, which is actually where the property line is. So that was the original design that was provided to this board to review. And you can see there's an area of dispute, or a 9.1 foot gap with respect to that. So a second design needed to be developed, and that shifted to the left 9.1 feet. And so now you can see that on Attachment 9. When you take a look at this drawing, this is shifting the right-of-way to the left 9.1 feet so that you can get to the 31.9 feet plus the 18.1 foot variance to ultimately achieve the 50 feet. So you can see how this project has pieced these various pieces together to attempt to try to obtain 50 feet to put a roadway in there. But shifting that 9.1 feet to the left goes into the Ratliff property. And as you can see on this diagram, it takes away Jimmy's ability to have his truck there, park his vehicle anywhere on the private driveway. And that's the impact that we're talking about to Johns Marine. The ability for him to maneuver boats the way that he has been for 40 years will be impacted. Criterion number 4 of the questions that have to be answered, it will have an impact to Johns Marine. There's absolutely no way that you can answer that question any other way. I did provide Attachment 10, which is the FERC provided diagram that shows you the 804 FERC boundary. It is public information you can obtain and review yourself. You can see that it shows the point on there and then where Ratliff property is located. At this point, I'll open it up for any questions from me.
Questions? Help me understand. I mean, Jimmy needs to be able to maneuver boats, pull boats out of the water, pull them up, and back them into the
shop.
The shop where he services them. He could decouple the truck from the boat, could he not, while they're being serviced?
It's difficult to pull a boat and back a boat in a roadway that has 200 cars a day going down it, regardless of if Jimmy parks the truck there or not. So it makes it a challenging, unsafe to the health and safety of the public to do that.
But he does have a maneuvering room there to do that, all right?
As long as there's not a road in the middle of it, which is what the design is proposing. So go back to the Attachment 8, please. Right there. No, that's 7, 8. Oh, I'm sorry. Attachment 9. So that red hashed mark is the impact to Jimmy being able to back into the shop.
Now, does that extend on the road itself, road surface itself? Is the road surface itself impinging that, or is it the right-of-way?
So we have met several times with the developer, and the description is that we will not know the exact dimensions of the road until it is built. And those are the exact words. Quote, "We will not know the exact dimensions of the road until it is built." It could be a little bit this way, it could be a little bit that way, but we have to have the right-of-way so we can put the road in. And we heard from the county, the utilities will also be a challenge. So where are the utilities going to go that are not going to rip up the concrete that is part of the driveway that Jimmy is currently using? Furthermore, all the construction to put the road in and to build the homes, that will have an impact on his business. All of that will be happening. When we met with the developer and we discussed what kind of restrictions can we put on that, times of year, other ideas that we came up with, there was no acceptable answer to address those concerns to the Ratliffs.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing I will say is the Ratliffs are not opposed to the property owner having access to his property. That is fully accessible through a private driveway, and we would support that, and we have since the beginning. That is not a challenge for us. The concern is having 19 homes with 200 cars per day as represented by Oconee County Roads and Bridges going down to this point and how that would impact Jimmy's business. And then if you read the code for a BZA, there is a statement in there that says that the board cannot approve just based on economic development alone. And that appears that is what the board is considering with respect to neglecting criterion number 4. And that's my personal opinion. And that's in the code. I can give you the section.
We're aware of that, sir.
Okay. Very well.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Brandt?
Yes, thank you. Try to be brief. Everybody's covered it time again. I handed up a pack of exhibits, and basically what I'm intending to show there, if you look at it, is how the Ratliff family themselves have conveyed property back and forth between each other, mentioning the right-of-way of Ellenberg Road, even after they say that Ellenberg Road for public maintenance ended 700 feet up the hill. Also, if you look at the last exhibit in there, was the deed where Crescent Properties sold it to Farms, that property, which is a player in this, and you go to the second page and you say what they says, easements, covenants, restrictions, and conditions of record, and rights of way of public and private streets and roads, including but not limited to the right of way shown on the plat Ellenberg Road. Now, my point is that there's no doubt that this was in the county inventory. It was given a number, WA 42, I believe. I could be wrong on that one. But anyway, this was a time they've claimed that they stood out there with some right-of-way technician, and he agreed to move the thing up the hill. Well, the right-of-way technician can't violate the law. There's a specific statute that if you're going to close a public road or a portion of a public road, that you have to do it a certain way. That's been in existence in South Carolina since 1962, somewhere around there. I had a case on that exact thing over where Dutch Fork is, years ago. I represented the Neville family. The state highway was going to abandon the road, turn it around. They didn't make, also that statute says you've got to make all governmental entities and adjacent landowners parties, because they have an interest in that roadway. There has never been an action brought to close the road pursuant to 57.910 of the South Carolina Code. Never. Certainly, we've got a sign where it heads county maintenance down at the end. We've heard statements today that support that. But I'm telling you that when they get to that, and the Ratliffs have said, no, we don't mind you coming in there. But let me say this. What we're asking you to do is to make a determination on the variance that we need when we get to our boundary line, that boundary line at the end. Certainly, you don't have jurisdiction to tell us what we can and can't do up the street. That's between us, maybe in the court and some other deity, but not this board. That basically, we go in there and of course, there's no reason for us to go into other expensive litigation or trying to work out other problems unless we know we're gonna get a variance. We gotta get a variance to go in there. So will this end the fight? Well, the Ratliff say they need that space to turn the boats around. If you believe what they tell you is, that's a private driveway, it's private property, and we own part of it. What if we wall it off? Put a fence, and don't do anything with our 15 acres. They're gonna have more problems then than they did if they'll help us, and we get this scheme going where they can go in there and turn the boats around. That has been the basis, but the deeds clearly put it in the county inventory, and once it gets in the county inventory, whether it's prescriptive easement or grant, if you go to close it, you gotta comply with that statute. And there has never been an action brought to close that roadway, so that public right-of-way still stands. It's there. Now, obviously, they may not have, built the things as wide as we'd like years and years ago, but the right-of-way is there coming down that road, and it belongs to the public. But that said, I think I've about exhausted my welcome, and I don't really expect to get a round of applause when I quit, but.
Brett, I have a question, please, sir. Mr. Brett? Mr. Brett?
What?
I have a question, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned I know you wouldn't do it, but you could put, the way the current road is, you own half and the Ratliffs own half. You could put a fence down the middle of it if you were so inclined.
If you take their argument, then we're free to wall it off.
Okay, now, an issue here is if it were necessary for them to move their truck and trailer across the road in order to maneuver it into the shop. There is a sliver of land, the proposed layout, there's a sliver of land in there that would belong to the requesting party that they could presumably not allow.
We could not allow that.
Yeah, you could not allow access to that. Are you willing to deed that sliver of land to the Ratliffs so that they had ownership of that?
The section in between the new road and the old road?
Yes.
Yes, we intended to do that last time.
You said you'd do that last time. I'm trying to confirm that. So
Yes.
there's not an issue of access in there. They don't have to go across your property to get into their driveway.
They do right now, yes.
They do right now. And
In
they do
fact,
that.
the picture that he was kind enough to show is an example of them using our property to access their poorly placed shop.
So you would deed that, whatever it takes to give them ownership of that, so that's not an issue.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I can take a couple.
Let me see, where are we here now? But if
We're not done with public comment, but I'll wait till after public comment, it's fine.
okay. John Richardson.
Afternoon. I'm John Richardson. I live at 311 Green Tree Court in Harbor Oaks subdivision. And I guess my point that I'd like to make is the applicant's point was that the unique aspects of the geography and the location make it necessary for the board to grant the variance. I would say you have to look at it the other way around. The unique aspects of that area and the geography make it such that you should not grant the variance. First of all, have any of the board members been to that area? Been down
You need to
there?
respond to that. Please just
Okay.
give us your point of view.
Unless you've been there, it's hard to see, but there's no way, I think you can grant a variance and have another 200 cars go down there without impacting John's Marina, and that would be a sad situation. The second thing is, that road is pretty hazardous, Ellenberg Road, and you have an additional 200 cars traveling on that road, especially heavy traffic, heavy equipment, and large equipment during construction of that many lots. You're creating a real hazard on that road. And if you haven't been there, believe me, because right now, I've seen, just walking on that road, I've seen a lot of near collisions with heavy equipment, many cars, because the areas where you can't see what's coming at you, a lot of times the heavy equipment is parked on the road, construction equipment waiting to get to their destinations or whatever, and it creates a tremendous hazard. An additional 200 cars a day, once that property is fully developed, you're asking for some real hazards to the public. And it would be seriously a hazard during construction. So, that's my point.
Okay. Thank you, sir, appreciate it. Please hold your applause. Please don't do that. Mr. Doug Cooper.
First, I'd like to thank the board for allowing public comment on this issue again. My name is Doug Cooper, and I'm the president of the Harbor Oaks Homeowners Association. Again, I'll start with, as an association, we are not opposed to the development of this parcel. This all started back in July of '21, on a Saturday morning when 7 triaxles of fill were brought in early on a Saturday morning, and the community started wondering what was going on. So anyway, some of our points. Point number 1, as can be viewed on a November 30th, 2021 variance meeting video, the chair asked the developer if they had met with Duke and obtained Duke's approval. He responded that they had, and that Duke approved everything they are doing. This can be found at 2 hours, 24 minutes, 26 seconds on the video, and watch it through 2 hours, 31 minutes of 35 seconds. I've reached out to Duke Lake Management corporate offices in Charlotte on April 12th. It's one of many times I've talked to them. In my April 12th discussion, I was told, quote, "We have not approved anything for that lot. We are having discussions with the developer, but as of today," and that day was 4/12/22, "we have not approved anything." So there's a lot of people talk about misinformation going back and forth. That's from the people that manage all of the lake services people at Lake Keowee, Lake Jocassee, and other places. That was the regional department and his supervisor. Point 2, at the January 24th, 2022 variance meeting, the county attorney, Mr. Root, makes a comment at 32:04 of the video that at this time he cannot determine the actual end of county maintenance is. He cites the differences in some of the affidavits and the things that have come out. If you've gone out to Ellenberg Road, you can clearly see that the county did a very major rebuild of Ellenberg Road in 2013 to support the Harbor Oaks subdivision. This effort stops at 5665 Ellenberg Road, which is the 700 feet away from the end of Ellenberg Road or down at John's Marine, where all the materials were dumped. If the county owned and maintained all of Ellenberg Road and it had not been abandoned, why then was the rest of that road not rebuilt in 2013 when all the rest of it was back up to Knox Road? Where the project stopped, by the way, was very consistent, within a few feet, probably, of where the affidavits are saying that the sign used to be. So there's another coincidence. But the sign has gone missing. The sign has been moved, who knows. Additionally, in our response to our FOIA to the county, regarding where the road ended, we were told, quote, "There are no written materials available to provide. The county attorney gave a verbal opinion at the last meeting to the effect that the county's corporate memory is that the prescriptive easement extended to the end of the pavement, but that the affidavit raises a question of fact in his mind regarding the precise scope of the easement," end quote. What's county corporate memory? What does it mean? Do you still have the people that were here in 1988 to provide that intimate knowledge of Ellenberg Road? I know for a fact, Ellenbergs and Ratcliffes have lived there pretty much every day for the last 40 years. So I guess their corporate knowledge would be pretty good too. Probably more accurate than the memories a developer would like the county to have. And as referenced in the FOIA response, the county attorney still has doubts. Point 3, the developers claim the county changed the ordinance in 2014 that changed their ability to use the land as it had been purchased in 2008, citing the 50-foot right-of-way as the issue. He claimed prior to that, it could have done anything that they wanted to do and develop this property as they're proposing prior to that. We've done our own research and found that the 50-foot right-of-way was in effect as far back as 2006 from online meeting minutes that are available on the county's website. We found that the 2014 ordinance did change the number of homes on a private road, and it reduced that number. So from when the property was purchased in 2008. Therefore, the property cannot be used to build a number of homes it could have built on a private driveway when it was purchased in 2008. The developer really should be asking for a variance to reinstate to the 8 or 10 homes that was allowed in 2008 instead of the 4 homes that are now allowed on that private, what could be a private road, and there's plenty of ingress and egress opportunities for that number. At no time was the property that was purchased in 2008, at 2008, able to be developed into the 19 homes that the developer claims he could have built prior to 14. We are not opposed to the board reinstating the private road limit to whatever it was prior to 2014, whether it was 8 or 10 or whatever the homes were. We feel that the developer is trying to manipulate Duke, Oconee County, and this board in order to maximize their profits at John Marine's expense and the safety and livelihood of all of us that live in that area and on that road. They twist and turn things every time this board asks a question, making claims some not even a county attorney can verify. The deed says it was for development at the time it was drawn up, and that would have been for what it was limited for the ingress and egress, which would have allowed at that time a private road. But it could not have gone any further because even at that time, the county had a 50-foot right-of-way in place. Never 19. Never. Thank you for allowing the time for our community to be heard.
Thank you, sir. Don't make me read that again. Mr. Bruce, is it due?
Yes.
Please, sir.
I'm a speaker here. That guy.
No, you got to come up here, please, sir. State your name. I appreciate it.
Hi. Previous speaker, I think covered it pretty darn well. I guess I have 2 comments. One, first time I've been in your establishment in this room, and I see your sign there, Think Oconee. And I think that may be something that you really ought to take into consideration. You guys are the thinkers here. You got to figure it out. I've been going to John's Marina for 20 years, a little over 20 years actually. Great people. I actually don't have a trailer, but Jimmy lets me use one of his trailers when I come over and puts it away. This was going to be a real problem for his business. There's no question about it. So let's think about it a little bit. And then I will comment. I was kind of taken back by the attorney's comment, well, we could put a fence down the middle of that on the, is that the way that we want to handle this situation? That seems like a pretty tough comment. I don't agree with that. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, this is a point of order. The applause is part of the speech that's disruptive, and if you could keep the chambers within order for fairness to both parties.
Yes, I think that's accurate. So please, our attorney has advised us, please hold off on the applause. Mr. Rick McDuff.
That's me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're done.
I'm just reading my list.
Just a point here, I think you need to about the issue of whether or not they can fence it. The Ratliffs have a prescriptive easement, if anybody does, because of this continuous use. And fencing that roadway would be something that would be completely impermissible.
We
So-
understand. We understand. Thank you, sir. Serena Richardson.
Hello, thank you for letting me come speak. My name is Serena Brown Richardson. My family has lived here in Oconee for 5 generations since the 1800s in the Kiwi community, Evatt and Stamp Creek Landing Road. In 1970, when the lake was built, we witnessed this road being transformed from a highway into a treacherous, dangerous, never been repaved, dead-end road of today. I'm concerned with traffic density issues not only for Knox Road that I live on, but also Ellenberg and Evatt. They're very dangerous. We've talked about the equipment coming. I actually have a video on Knox Road where a lumber truck about knocked a pickup truck off the road. And it's the county side. It's very narrow. If you actually ran off the road, you'd flatten a tire. So I'm requesting that a traffic density study of all those roads be done. These rental properties, they're not rentals. They are rentals. They're not investment. They're claiming they're rentals, but they are investment properties. And that would basically, those extra 200 cars would be a lot of traffic. Secondly, I'm concerned about the issues that were brought up about them basically illegally filling the property to even have enough roadway to do this access. And it was brought up by someone else that I was going to bring up about the, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, about the emergency vehicles being able to get out there. That was a big concern I had. And then something was brought up about the power poles. Well, when they developed Spring Hollow, as a local Oconee resident for years, I now have a big power pole in my yard from that development. Are there going to be power poles all down Ellenberg, which can't support it? And I think some of those things should be considered because Duke Energy has to do their power. So we had power poles, but they were Blue Ridge, they couldn't use them. So now my husband can't drive his vehicle through my yard because they decided to put a power pole, which they have all rights to do that, unfortunately, but that's, another concern that I have, and I feel like that our county needs to look out for the locals and not so much our investors. We're the people that have been here for years. We're the people that vote you in office. And it obviously is going to affect the business. But I'm here also as, a 5-generation Oconian, that this is crazy to allow them to illegally do this. They should only be able to do what it was originally to do and not the additional homes. So if y'all do go to vote, I definitely think the road study should be done. There should be some improvements to our roads. Maybe y'all need to consider these developers have to pay some for the other roads to get better because it is a very dangerous road up near High Towers. If you pass one of those trucks, there's ruts in the road and it's raining, they about knock you off the road. It's very dangerous. So I hope the board, it doesn't sound like you could vote, but if you do vote, I hope you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else who would like to say something? Yes, sir.
I had a question.
No, please come up. We can't answer questions now.
All right.
Sorry.
Where my question is,
Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Chris Leonard, live on the lake. What I'm curious about, every now and then they talk about this fence, but let's flip-flop it the other way. So let's say that fence was put up on the property line that's in the middle of that road easement. If that fence was put all the way up there, do they have 50-foot right-of-way on the opposite side of the fence between that and the lake all the way around? If they don't, it sort of takes it out of the question. In other words, if there's not 50 foot between that easement on that line, if the fence truly went up, then I don't see where it comes into play using their property.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your input. Is there anyone else who has any comments? Yes, ma'am.
They're in the lake.
State your name, please.
My name is Lucretia Morgan, and I own property on Ellenberg Road.
And I'll let Jimmy finish passing my packets out.
Lucretia Morgan?
Yes, Lucretia Morgan.
Please go ahead.
Right, okay. I own property on Ellenberg Road, and I would like to share a few comments regarding the initial meeting for this variance in November 2021. Back in November, the applicant and his team presented a lot of information regarding the proposed subdivision. There were many statements which were inaccurate and misleading. In the November meeting, several people stated the property owner knew what he was purchasing and had access for only 4 homes at the time of purchase. However, Mr. Mike Johnson, who mentioned that he is a planning commissioner for Oconee County, and while he was not here representing the Planning Commission or Oconee County, said he brought experience with regard to public interest, private property rights, and a discussion of these ordinances. Mr. Johnson also failed to state he is a real estate agent of the developer, Mr. Andy Lee. Mr. Johnson stated there are many roads in Oconee County with the required 20-foot driving surface, but not a 50-foot right-of-way. Many subdivisions were mentioned, such as Harbor Oaks, The Summit, Waterside, and so on. But none of these, nor any other subdivision, have a less than a 50-foot right-of-way at the entrance. These smaller roads and right-of-ways do exist, as he stated. However, they are servicing only 2 to 6 homes, which within the subdivision and not at the point of entrance for 19 homes, and channeled into a small pinch point. Mr. Johnson also mentioned that the private road ordinance changed in 2013, and the ordinance amends Chapter 26-2 under the private road standards. The ordinance appears to bring private roads up to the private right-of-way, he said, that 50 foot. And any conversation about the developer should have known, he said, well, probably it's not true. Well, it is true. While the standard he mentioned didn't go into effect until 2013, the 50-foot right-of-way was in existence in the subdivision and land development signed by Oconee Council on April 4th, 2006, which you can find a copy in the County Council meeting minutes backup material starting on page 39. I've also provided you with a copy, which is Exhibit 1, 2, and 3, which are stapled in your packet, and I highlighted the ordinance. Also, in addition, dating back to 2000, Ordinance 9914, which was the Oconee County Unified Performance Standards and Land Use Development Regulations, Section 6.7.3, private roads serving more than 10 homes. It states a private road shall have a minimum right-of-way easement of 50 feet. So yes, the developer knew what he was purchasing in 2008. In fact, in the county council meetings from August 1st, 2000, the property owner, Mr. John Hamrick, attended the meeting and spoke in opposition of the proposed subdivision ordinance due to the way the property would have to be divided. The 50-foot right-of-way for local and collector residential roads, public or private, was also part of this ordinance. This requirement was not new and predates the 2008 property purchase by at least 8 years. And you can find, I have those meeting minutes also attached in your packet. There was also discussion regarding the square footage of homes being reduced in 2016. When asked during the November meeting, the developer denied this. In your packet, you will find Exhibit 4 and 5 copies of the 2008 and 2016 deeds. Clearly, the minimum home size was changed from 2,400 square feet on a 2-story home to 2,000 square feet on either a 1, 1.5, or 2-story home, thus reducing the home size. The basement was also previously excluded as part of the home square footage. In 2016, the basement was removed from this exclusion. This is not like kind to Harbor Oaks, which is constantly being referred to. Lot sizes in Harbor Oaks nearly are almost 1 acre, and the homes average nearly 4,400 square feet. There was also extensive discussion during the November meeting regarding a 25-foot right-of-way the developer was attempting to impose on Johns Marine and giving or deeding a 22-foot section of property to Johns Marine. This was very misleading. First of all, there is no existing 25-foot right-of-way on this property. The developer has proposed adding it, which will leave a 2 to 4 inch strip of no man's land. This strip is approximately 22 foot long and runs parallel to the front of the shop. Johns Marine currently owns this piece of property, and the developer is not giving him additional room. In fact, the developer has no property to give in front of the shop. They need the Ratlifts and a 25-foot right-of-way for the utilities. What they need will only impede the access that he currently has in front of his shop. 19 homes are not only for 19 people. They're UPS, Amazon, UPS, FedEx, other deliveries. Friends, family, renters also added to the traffic. It's not a through road, so every car that goes in must come out the same way. According to Roads and Bridges, this can equate to 200 vehicles per day. A variance should not be approved based only on profitability. As stated in the South Carolina Board of Appeals, variances and special exceptions, per South Carolina laws, Title VI, Local Government Comprehensive Planning Enabling Act of 1994, that property may be utilized more profitably if a variance is granted, may not be considered as grounds for a variance. And Oconee County ordinance also states this. In the applicant's variance criteria overview Exhibit 8, he also states that his property is bounded by a body of water, and most parcels in the vicinity are not bound by water on both sides. He also states that due to the unique geography of this parcel, meeting the current road ordinance goes beyond creating an unnecessary hardship and instead only creates a possibility of use. The owner-developer has access to his property. He has the same access he did at the time of purchase. Nothing has changed, including the 50-foot right-of-way for public and private roads. John's Marine has been in the same location since 1982 for 40 years. The developer states that he is only asking for a variance on the right-of-way, not the road width. I ask you to consider why the 50-foot right-of-way was put in place. The purpose of such regulations is to protect and promote the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Oconee County. This proposal for 19 homes to enter with anything less than a 50-foot right-of-way is not upholding these standards. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone else who would like to comment? Anyone else like to comment? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I had a question or with Mr. Root, could I ask that now or should I wait for discussion?
What I was going to do is ask the applicant if they have any rebuttal, and then I was going to go back to staff for some questions I have at least, and you can have some questions.
Sure.
How's that? Does that make sense? Sure. We can do it now if you want. But
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Does the applicant have any further input? Absolutely. Any response to?
All right. So,
Would you state your name, please, sir?
I am Andy Lee.
Andy?
Andy Lee.
Andy Lee.
So just to cover a couple of things, it is, the amount of misinformation is out there is absolutely astounding. I read online today where I went out and met Jimmy a couple years back, and while he was working on the boat, I had him sign some papers where I stole some property from him. So I get the public's concern. I would suggest to you that the bulk of it is inaccurate information. We have a plat. If we will look at, let me get mine opened up. To cover this too, I sat with Larry all day today, and we pulled plats back to the early 70s. The prescriptive easement is on every single plat, on every single piece of road down that road, and has been up until 2021 when the last one was sold, which was Jimmy. So it's been acknowledged by everyone along there, however many times, literally every single piece of property is sold. So there is no question of whether it exists or not. It exists on many plats and documentation. There is no question of whether it exists. The question was also raised is, why is it that it goes from 20 foot down to 18? Well, if you know anything about Oconee County, someone would talking about the evil developer if I'm an out-of-state guy. My family got our grant from the king. So everybody in this room, I'm probably more local than anybody here, okay? But the reason that is back in the day, the older county roads, they didn't have the double lines regularly if they were secondary road, and they weren't 20 foot wide, which is our standard now. They were 18. If you go up Chalmers Mountain Road right now, it's the road that my grandfather's house is on. It's 18 feet wide. It's dangerous. I don't disagree. Cars are a lot bigger than they used to be. But the reason they're different widths is because back then, secondary roads were not built 20 foot wide. They were built 18 foot wide. The next question is this: why did they stop where they stopped when they were redoing it. That happens frequently. I build a subdivision, shockingly, it causes some damage on the road, right? The county comes in, we're on a budget, we don't want to spend any more than we have to, we repave the bad part, and we leave the part that has had very little traffic on it at all, we leave it alone. The road in front of my house right now hadn't been paved in 40-something years. It looks terrible. But it doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean just because it's 18 feet wide, doesn't mean that Mr. Rafflet paved it. So we've got pictures, and that's funny. It's like suddenly, at our last meeting, their position was that they met somebody in 08 who said, we're going to stop the county maintenance right here. Okay, well, again, there's a process for that. Crescent, who I represent and did then, right? John, everybody would have been notified, and everybody would have to give some level of consent. It just because some random, if this is, because I don't believe the story to be true, somebody just ran from the county, randomly met them out there, or meets me at my house and says, you know what, we're going to abandon that now. And everybody that uses that road to access their property, they're just tough. They're just out of luck. Well, that's not how it works. And it doesn't work that way for a reason. And the picture that's been painted is not only inaccurate, it's impossible. It simply can't happen that way. There's laws in place that block that. So is there a right-of-way there? Yes, and all of their plats show it, back to the 60s. Again, the reason the new road has stopped is because the county don't go past where the super heavy traffic is coming out of Harbor Oaks. So that area down there doesn't receive much traffic. It doesn't get beaten up as bad. It doesn't get worn out as bad. So it doesn't get paved as often. That's not hard. All right, so if we could go to, let me break out my plats here. Some of the, if we could go to, actually item 3. It's a, nope. Yep, that's it. So there's some confusion too as far as the need for a 50-foot right-of-way, okay? We're not saying, as Jay Ratliff had tried to point out, that we're trying to put a 50-foot right-of-way out into the water. Obviously not. That's why we're here. We're asking for a reduction of a 50-foot right-of-way, okay? So there are plenty of roads in the county that have 30-foot right-of-ways. I think in November, September, this board approved the taking over of some private roads that had a 30-foot right-of-way. So it happens frequently, actually. I could be happy to supply those to you at a later date if you'd like. His numbers are inaccurate. We've got a historical plat. And then there was a question Mr. Cooper asked about Duke. Duke doesn't, I don't need Duke's Energy's permission to build a subdivision. What they say is don't get in my property and we don't care what you do. So the premise that, well, he didn't get Duke's permission, that's because I don't have to. Now, you can call them and ask them that tomorrow if you're not sure. We don't regulate, this board, county council, we don't regulate what happens on the water. We don't control, this county doesn't control dock permits, nothing like that, right? So they're as far as things like that go, they're self-governing. They don't care what I do there. They actually want to be left alone. They're like, as long as you're not in my property, that's fine. I've got a plat right there, because they've been called out 47 times, okay? Maybe that's not the right number, but you understand what I'm saying. They've been called out because I have the plat from 08 shows I have 31.9 feet, okay? This deficit that we're talking about, this was back in the summer when we started talking about doing this, and I met Jimmy, and as a courtesy. I mean, Jimmy and we've known each other a long time. And he very proudly told me that property pin wasn't there anymore. Well, just because somebody digs up a property pin doesn't mean with a plat, I can't find out exactly where that property pin is supposed to be. Whether you dug the pin up or not is irrelevant, okay? So the plat from 08 shows I've got 31.9 feet, as it shows right there. If you can see that, right at the red. That's the section that I need a variance for. And the 50-foot variance, this is the reason you have a 50-foot variance. I built subdivisions for a living for a long time now. traditionally speaking, this is where the county came in and had put a generic rule on every road. I want this to be a private road, okay? That's some of the confusion with out there as well, there's between driveways, et cetera, et cetera. A private road, it's still gonna be 20 feet wide, okay? We were talking about the fire earlier. That's the reason I'm putting in 2 cul-de-sacs to accommodate fire trucks. That's the reason, right? And just the convenience of turning around before you get inside a gate. It's gonna be deed restricted where the public can use the first one, including Jimmy and everybody else to turn around so they don't have to back out the 700 feet backwards with the boat trailer. I've done it. It's a terrible experience. But we're not asking for a buffer to jump out into the middle of the water or like onto Jimmy's property. There'd be nothing past that point. That point, that is the property point right there, where the red starts in this corner. Right there. In no way, shape, or form are we suggesting or asking for the right-of-way to go into his property at all. If you'll go to, that's the reason we're asking for a reduction. And the reason for a 50-foot right-of-way, for the record, is if the biggest reason for it is if we ever had to get to a point where that road got so busy, it needed 4 lanes, you've got space for it. You've got space for 20 foot, and then 10 foot of repair, road shoulders, et cetera, et cetera. That will never need to be a 4-lane highway, I promise. It dead ends. So that won't happen. The 200 cars that may have come, I hear you statistically. Keeping in mind, 50% of those are second homes, right? So it's not like a traditional community in town. Around 50% of the lake homes are second homes, lake-wide. So if we could go to item 4. Right. So this is the existing road, right? That's the lakeside of. This is the existing road, right there. All of this is where we're shifting the road down, right? So what was being used for road, the right lane going away from the marina, is no longer being used for a road anymore. So that's not a couple of inches, that's a solid 10 feet, all right? So that entire lane, and then some, actually more than that, because this is here and here. So the entire lane that's on Jimmy's property that runs down the center of the road won't be there anymore. We are pulling the road as far down as I possibly can, and as far as I can, as a courtesy if nothing else, quite honestly, because I don't have to. I could just put it right there. But I'm pulling it all the way down, giving him as much space as possible. It's 31 feet there, right there. This is his pad. His shop's back here, right? So, and it pulls back in right there at the where the edge of pavement is, because that's the pitch spot. So, if someone who was asking how much I need for utilities, about 2.5, 3 feet. You stack it. It's not complicated. I do it all the time. So, but the comment that he's getting 2 or 3 inches, again, that's a large space. That's completely fraudulent. So there's plenty of space for that. There was let's see. No, I didn't show it. If we could go to item 2. Yep. So if you look here again, so the tight spot's right there, right? There's the existing road. There's the there's the existing road. Moving it down here. There's the pad. There's the garage, right? Up here, completely away and out of the way. Cul-de-sac, two Oconee code for fire trucks, et cetera, and then another. So I'm first of all, the way it works right now, look at the way it is right now. again, I've had to back my truck and my trailer out that 700 feet many, many times, okay? Because there's nowhere to turn around. I'm now giving him more space. I'm giving him a cul-de-sac to turn around, and I'm moving it over. Fact of the matter is, his concern, if you go back to his, presently, Jimmy is using, and always has, Jimmy uses the bulk of the property right here that I'm offering to, again, give to him. I was out there just the other day. Boats are parked all over it. Well, that's my property, okay? It's not my fault that you can't run your business by not illegally using my property. So all of this is regularly parked in boats, right? All that right there. I'm giving you the space you're already using. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'm not negatively impacting the business. I'm helping it actually operate without using my property as a parking lot. So, and you know, it said earlier that Jimmy's not opposed to me using my property. Well, I'm not opposed to him using his either. I'm just asking you to stop using mine in the way you're using it. And I'll give you the property that you can have, that you can park on. All of that along right there. Let's see. Well, so one's everyone else's, for the record. So, you know, and it boils down to, I understand not wanting to have a neighbor. God knows I do. But I have them. So it's, I understand him not wanting anybody out there. Again, I wish I didn't have a neighbor either, but I do. And it's basic property rights. I should not be telling them what they can and can't do with their property. And that's what he's asking you to do. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Lee?
No?
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, I think the board may have some questions of staff. Some issues have been raised. Jones, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Root, the contention was made in one of the presentations that we don't have the right to vote on this issue because it's not a county property and we can't vote on that. Is that a correct statement?
I don't want to get into arguing the merits of the matter. I think Mr. Brandt touched on the fact that there is, within the area that they're seeking the narrowing of the right-of-way, that is all within the applicant's property. As far as it being a justiciable or something that you have jurisdiction over to grant the variance, it doesn't have to be a county road for you to do that. I understand the prescriptive easement issue may be still swirling around in your heads as far as whether or not it extends to the end of the pavement or not. The law allows you to grant variances, special exceptions, et cetera, with conditions put on there. You could have as a condition that, of course, abandonment procedure is followed through with properly, the road acceptance procedure is followed through properly. These are things we talked about last time. This is really the beginning of the process. The abandonment procedure that's been talked about several times, there is no way for a county, really any political subdivision or the state, to divest itself of a roadway unless you go through the abandonment procedure, which gives notice to all the surrounding landowners. You post it with signs. You eventually find your way in court, and you get the judge to determine, one, that it's in the best interest for all those who are involved or who are interested, and then two, who owns the land underneath the road if it's going to be abandoned. That's going to have to happen in the way the road is being configured here. So I don't know that it is to say, all right, well, no prescriptive easement or it's in doubt, so that's the end of the inquiry. I still think, yeah, you can find facts on that matter, but I don't think that's the end of your job. Is that responsive?
I think so.
Feel free to ask a follow-up.
Mr. Reed, could I put you on the spot for a minute?
Sure.
Representations have been made that 19 homes added to this development will create traffic of 200 cars a day. Did that come from you folks, or where does that come from?
No, sir. I was asked a general question about traffic on the road. It is in our ordinance that anything over 11 or more lots has to have a traffic impact study. Generally, I answered a question about, what that is, and the book that decides that is used by traffic engineers to call out what that would be. Now, that runs anywhere from what used to be, and this is, again, why I try not to throw out numbers, but it used to be like 10.1 for residential homes. Well, it goes down from there depending on the use of the home or the use of the property. So I'm not a traffic engineer. I didn't do a traffic engineer for the road or anything else like that, but one would have to be done for the development.
So if we proceeded with this development, you'd have to do a traffic study, and that's when the professionals would decide
Yes.
what the impact would be, whether it's acceptable or not.
And for the whole road, what does the whole road carry? What needs to happen with the road?
And Ellenberg Road, that's built to county standards, is it not?
No, sir. I mean, without a plan, it's hard to say, but no, sir. No, I can comfortably say it's not. But without a plan, you've got, any road that's built in the county now has to be a minimum 20-foot wide. Ellenberg Road is not. It has to have 4-foot shoulders. Ellenberg Road does not. Ellenberg Road, when it was done and rehabilitated, the road was crumbling. We had to patch essentially the entire road. So we had to take out 7 inches, put the road back where it was before, because we had a prescriptive easement. We didn't have right of way to widen it. We didn't have right of way to reconstruct it. The only thing we had was a road that was completely deteriorating that needed to be, so it's just a long patch is what the road is. It took a lot of time to dig out 7 inches at a time.
Okay.
But we don't go back and bring roads up to standard.
No,
unless there's a.
No, we do. We try to bring roads up to standards as we can with, gravel roads or roads that are paved that we know we have an issue on, that we have right of way on, that we can try to bring them up to standard. Brown Farm Road being one of them. That does happen from time to time, but we don't have right of way in Ellenberg Road. We try to see, fill out be able to obtain right of way on it, and it was, nobody wanted to give right of way for the road. Or not nobody, but the people that we contacted didn't want to give right of way for the road. And one no pretty much kills it for us to be able to change it.
But I guess the question is, there are county roads that are somewhat like Ellenberg Road.
There's a ton of roads like Ellenberg Road.
May not be current standards. There's a lot of roads like that.
I'm sorry?
There are a lot of roads like that in the county that don't meet current standards.
Yes.
Okay. Not like we put in a new standard and then automatically we change all the.
No, and that standard, the standard for the new road ordinance was 06. The new standards, the 20-foot wide instead of 22, it used to be 22 and things of that nature. So that was 06 when that standard was passed.
Okay, and the question was raised about fire equipment, access down the road. If part of the approval process will see to it that the cul-de-sacs being put in will allow proper fire access.
That's not my side of the world, and James can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's fire that looks at the size of the cul-de-sac.
But that'd be part of the approval
for the
process.
circumference of it, yeah.
It will meet current county standards on for fire equipment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir, do appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you
Yes,
could.
sir.
Just one, Mr. Reed, we talked before about the ending of the 2012 pavement, why it didn't go to the end of the prior pavement. Do you want to touch on that?
Yes, I was out there. I was present whenever we decided that, and I asked Matt Kelly, who was my predecessor over the road department, if he wanted to go any further, and he told me to stop where we were. That was get the worst of it essentially, and that was with the subdivision there and some of the construction that had gone on in that area. That was the worst part of the road that was alligator cracked completely up. Yeah, it was not anything but where the worst part of the road was, is why we stopped where we stopped.
Okay, fine, thank you, appreciate that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Root. Okay, any other questions from staff? Would the board like to take a break before we get into discussion? Do I hear you? Okay, entertain a motion to take a 10-minute break, reconvene at 5 minutes to 8.
So moved. Second.
Please have your seats and please stop the conversations. Appreciate it. Got an enter a motion to reconvene the planning commission. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5-0. Okay, we've reached the point where we've got to discuss and make a decision. I'd like to propose, I mean, there's lots of issues we've got to talk about. I'd like to propose the following categories we talk about them in order, so that we don't get all confused about one thing or another. We talk about things. I'd like to start out with prescriptive easement, and then talk about the road itself, and then talk about Johns Marine. A lot of the issues we have are with Johns Marine. Talk about how this might impact them. Duke Power, any impact there. And anything else you'd like to do. But I'd like, if we can do it in that order, then we'll hopefully avoid
That makes sense.
going off and
That makes sense.
the board
Do it
comfortable
order.
with that.
Do it order.
Anyone not comfortable with that approach? Okay. Let's start on the prescriptive easement. You've heard a lot of input from both sides. The county attorney, everyone else. What are your thoughts on the prescriptive easement?
I think from what we've heard so far that that does not bind us in any way in terms of whether, from a decision standpoint, we can go ahead with a decision. The preceptive easement doesn't impede us in any way, from what I understood from Mr. Rue. Is that true?
From my position, staying neutral, I believe you can craft an order that addresses the fact that the prescriptive easement they may not express a direct opinion on the prescriptive easement, but you address the variance at that pinch point, yes.
So I think we should do that and disregard the preceptive easement for purposes of this discussion.
We are not competent to decide that issue. We just don't, we don't have the competence. We don't have business in that, so we're not going to decide that. But is John's suggesting we ought to go ahead and decide this as though there were an easement, and then if someone wants to go to court to
Yeah.
decide that, they can do that, but it's.
Well, and they've got to have, Duke's got to get involved. Sounds like emergency. It sounds like a lot of other folks are going to get in.
Sure.
You know, we're not the deciding final decision on it. We're just saying, all right, move forward. Is what I understand that we're doing in that pinch point where.
So the second thing I'd like to talk about then is the road itself, the pinch point, and the variance being requested. As I understand it, the pinch point is on the applicant's property, at the applicant's property. And what he's representing is he doesn't have enough right-of-way there, but he can install a road. Mr. Reed has said we can install a road there that meets all standards. Just need, in this particular case, we don't need a wide right-of-way, the normal 50 feet. The 1.8 feet will do. So just looking at that, regardless of its impact on everything else, on Johns Marine and traffic and whatnot, are we comfortable with the road itself? Is it safe? Is it?
I would like to ask a question on that.
Sure.
And just, I don't know exactly who from staff may comment on it. It may depend on which way we go, but if, let's say that, let's just say we keep it like it is Oconee County going to come down there and do the road? Is whoever the winner of this argument is, are they going to upgrade the road down there around the pinch point? Or, I mean, if it's not Oconee's road, I don't really know why the county would go down there to work on that little bit of area. Now, Mr. Reed may have more to say about that than I do, but is that the county's thinking? Is that once whatever our decision is, A or B, then the county's going to go in there and make the road what it's supposed to be, as far as width, as far as vertical alignment and everything else? Is that the county going to do that, or is whoever the victor in this?
No, we do not.
I want to make sure, because I may have misheard what you had said, that the county was going to do that.
They would just inspect, make sure.
They would just inspect.
Okay, I misspoke. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mislead anyone.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
It will be put in according to county standards. It will have to agree with county. Yes, the developer will put the road in.
Right.
Mr. Lee has said he's going to put the road in.
I
It'll meet
just wanna
county
make sure
standards.
of that.
It'll be sloped the right way. It'll have drainage and whatnot.
Yes, without right-of-way, we can't change any characteristic of any road.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that nobody, because I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear on that. I didn't think the
Well,
county wanted to get involved.
Yeah, I guess it's decided there is no prescriptive easement there, and the county's not no business down there, and there isn't going to be a road built. Doesn't matter who's going to. So it all depends on that getting decided somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the one point that Kyle's made a couple times, and I don't want it to get lost, is, if you want to point up to the map, but where the pavement is, where the county contends it has a prescriptive easement, that's what we have. We can't jog the road to the right or to the left. We can't widen the road more. By virtue of the nature of a prescriptive easement, you get what you've developed over the course of those 20 years of use adverse to the owners. So in this case, the dirt underneath the asphalt. So, yeah, we can't unless that situation gets straightened out.
So that would be part of whatever decision is made downstream.
Follow-up proceedings.
Follow-up proceedings, excellent. Follow-up proceedings.
Mr. Rule, would that mean that if there was a prescriptive easement, that road then in theory could not be moved?
Without it being abandoned, correct, yeah. That prescriptive, so say the developer wants to do in a private road and just is south of this road in question. That area where we have the prescriptive easement, where the county contends it has a prescriptive easement, is still going to remain there, still going to remain open to the traveling public as is. We can't widen it, can't move it, can't do anything with it until it's abandoned, until it goes through that procedure that I talked about, which is a judicial procedure. I mean, the court's going to make a decision that, okay, you can abandon it, it's in the best interest of all interested parties, and this is who owns the dirt underneath the asphalt.
And then shifted, and then the county would probably take over that road and the new road when it was
That's all subject.
turned over to them at some point.
That will be all subject to the next steps if it's, it's built according to county specifications, get through abandonment,
So who's involved in the abandonment process? I mean, would the Rattlers have to be,
They would
or
be.
the Ellenbergs, I can't keep all the names straight. They would have to agree for it to be abandoned as well?
Well, they wouldn't have to agree, but they would have due process rights to appear and be heard by the court. So if they object to it, the court's gonna take that into the best interest of the public, certainly. They wouldn't have to consent necessarily, but I don't know that I've been involved in one that's been contested, that was still granted. I mean, it's just not, if we seek to abandon a road or a property owner seeks to abandon a road and we consent to it, there's no question that there's no use for this road anymore. So I can just speak from history on that experience.
So thank you. I think that clarifies for us what the situation is. Does everyone feel comfortable there? Okay. So let's talk about the road itself, and it's going to go, the right-of-way is going to be narrowed down. The road will still be full county spec road going through the narrows, if you will.
The full 20 foot?
Full 20 foot, be built to current county standards. If we go through all this process and it's decided we're going to build a road
Yes.
as the developer wants, that would be built to county standards.
Private or public roads have to be built to the same standard.
Right.
So 20-foot wide is the minimum that any road in the county can be built, but that is all predicated on what the traffic impact study says.
Okay, thank you.
So there's got to be a traffic study too before.
Yes, any lot,
There'll be a traffic
any
study.
subdivision, 11 lots or more, has to have a traffic impact study
There's a lot of
for the county road system and the road that is coming in.
Would that traffic study also take into consideration the upper part of that road also?
Yes, it would be for the entirety of
Because I mean, that is, I've driven it and it's dangerous.
Ellenberg Road, Ellenberg Road being all county, so anything that it ties to that is county has to be considered.
I mean, with the blind spots and the hills and what have you, it's rather treacherous.
But as far as this particular, the variance, particularly at the pinch point, I think we need to look at, is the road safe at that point? Is it,
That's all we're dealing with.
as we're constructing that road through that pinch point, is it safe? That
That's
making
all,
sense,
that's
Dan?
all, that's all we've got.
That's what the variance is about. Yes, we need to consider traffic safety and all that. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we're talking about the variance. And is the road itself, as it goes through that pinch point, is it safe?
And then we're gonna talk about the overall safety of the road.
Yes, yeah,
the traffic.
we'll get to traffic and that. I just want to, trying to get things in order, guys.
That's fine.
Is that making sense? Everyone agreed with that so far? Road itself will be safe as it goes through that pinch point. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the impact on Johns Marine.
Yeah.
Who has comments?
I-
Can I say one thing? No one wants Johns Marine to go, thank you, you can stop, thank you. No one wants Johns Marine to go away. We all agree with that?
Right.
We all want Johns Marine to stay. No one, I don't think the developer wants Johns Marine to go. Everyone wants Johns Marine to stay, thrive, service the community, da-da-da-da-da. Is that right? Okay, so,
I think-
impact on Johns Marine.
And I think the impact is basically that over the years, Johns Marine has taken that entire road, and that has become part of that overall driveway or a turnaround area, whatever, where he's moving his equipment and his boats. And it's, and any change to that now is gonna have some impact on his business, there's no question about that.
But has it not got more area? It looks to me, when you turn it, that there's more area there. If he's in agreement to deed it,
Yeah, but now when you're considering, I don't think the fact that he's actually using the roadway as part of his
the roadway's not
facility
going
there.
away.
Huh?
The roadway's not going away.
Actually, if you look at this picture here. Look at
No,
the
I
picture looks like he's got- he's
understand
gonna
it's
have
not
more
going
room.
away, but it's gonna, but you can't block it, you can't park vehicles across it and things like that.
If you abandon the Ellenberg, like he says, they go through the abandonment process, then that becomes, you know, and if he's in agreement to deed it over to him, you know, we can stipulate that.
If you look at that, he's going to gain a considerable amount of road that is current Ellenberg Road.
Yep.
He's going to have that, plus he's going to have, if he has to use it,
Yep.
the new Ellenberg Road. So it's going to be considerably wider, particularly at his driveway.
I agree with it, that.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
When you look at it that way, I'm just stating that the fact that he's been using that road as it exists for part of his business at
But
this point.
he'll own much of that. I guess I'm not sure how much, he'll own much of that if they deed over to him. He'll own much of the road he's using now, and he'll also have access to the new rerouted Ellenberg Road.
It'd actually be better, because I think, Mr. Lee, if I'm not mistaken, you made the comment that some of his boats and trailers and everything is on your property anyway right now. And you just haven't pushed the button to get it off.
And one of the issues is Johns Marine needs on occasion to have large trucks in there to offload parts, engines and whatnot. He would be able to park those in this crosshatched area again that we see, and not be on the road, per se. Is that making sense?
And it seems like Johns Marine is the sticky wicket here. This is the thing that we're trying to appease them and also listen to.
It's very emotional. We have a lot of folks here saying it's a big issue.
We have the balance back and forth, but the way I look at it, if a developer meets all the criteria for a new development and the use is a recommended use for that land, if it affects another neighbor in that use, that's an impact, but I'm not sure that I should be able to, I could stop a developer from developing when they meet all the criteria for a variance request. And plus, it sounds like the developer is doing things to help mitigate some of that traffic problem and some of the turnaround problem by granting some additional land and things like that. So I don't want to impact the marina any more than we have to, but I think there is a right of a developer, if they meet the criteria, that the use, if it's a use that can be made that's legally, I think they should have the right to do it.
Okay. I guess we could say that property was owned by Crescent. I guess it's it's not Crescent, it's some other entity owns it, but, and it has the same stipulations on it as other Crescent properties do, such that it'll be developed in the same way that some of the Crescent communities have been developed. Okay. Anything else on Johns Marine then? We're all agreed we want to keep Johns Marine, and it sounds to me like we're saying, if anything, he'll have better access to his business with these changes. I said that right, guys?
It would appear that way on the drawings.
It's certainly better access. I mean, I'm having trouble understanding where this will, provided it's deeded over. The property is deeded over so that for some unknown reason, the current owners couldn't stop him from access to his business. I mean, we've been assured that's not going to be the case. Okay, Duke Power. I don't think we're not a party to his relationship with Duke Power. That's his problem. The same thing with the, I mentioned somewhere with flood zone. That's between the developer and FERC. If 810 is a flood zone, that they got houses below 810, that may mean they have insurance problems. I don't know, but that's not our purview. We all agreed there? Okay. Okay, traffic. Let's talk traffic. We've established that there's going to have to be a traffic study done. It will be done not just right in front of Johns Marine, but it'll be done on all of Ellenberg Road. Is that what it amounts to?
Generally, yeah, it'd be up to the traffic engineer, but yes, that's what we would expect, that it would take into account all of Ellenberg Road.
Mark, what what does that study tell you? That
Average daily trips.
Right, but how's that going to impact the decision whether they get
If that road is up to a standard to carry that many trips, the ordinance calls out what that break-even point is, 400 and less, the 20-foot wide road, 400 to 800 is 22.
But it is feasible, that traffic study could niche this thing.
Oh, I couldn't.
I mean, it is possible. I'm just saying, is it possible that a traffic study could be done and they say, no, you can't move forward?
That would be up to the developer, and again, for the same issues that we would have with changing the road in any way or in right of way.
Right, but if the study comes back and says the road won't support the additional traffic, what happens?
It would need to be upgraded.
Okay. And whose responsibility?
Or they would have to reduce the number of houses, right?
Right, yeah.
So if
it goes under 11, then you don't have to do a traffic impact study.
Including 11?
Yes, including 11 and up.
And 11 and up or
10 and-
11 and down?
Sorry, 11 and up requires a traffic impact study.
So
10 and down
10 and
does not
down
require it.
Doesn't require it.
10 to 4 is a private drive. 3 to 0 or 3 to 1 is a driveway.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yep.
So the study would either upgrade the road, reduce the number of lots, or, right, that decision would have to be made by the. It would just say that road can't support that.
Well, they would look at it, they would provide us with whatever rationale that they had as far as the traffic engineer has.
Okay.
For that road, what the ADT is, compared to, what it's gonna be with the new development, the peak hours, all that stuff they would consider, taking into account what that impact to the road would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your continued forbearance and information. Okay, so, I live down South Cove Road. It's a dead end. It dead ends down at South Cove Park. There's about over 300 parcels that have to use South Cove Road to get out into the county. I counted the number of parcels on Ellenberg Road and off Ellenberg Road, like up in the subdivisions, and I got 77. Please don't hold me to the exact number, but that's what I got. His number is 77. And this project would add 25% to that, or take it up to 96 parcels. So and I live in a subdivision that's got 78 parcels. 78, there's almost all built out. I mean, I understand people's concern about traffic safety, but I just don't see a major safety issue there with the small number of parcels currently and the number of parcels being added. I know that's not a popular, and I guess if I could say, county roads are not intended to be pedestrian friendly. There's all kinds of county roads. I've been on county roads and I'd never be walking on that county road. And to walk your dog, I mean, it's just not included in the design of county roads. So I've said my piece. Who else has something to say?
You
guys got to have some idea what you want to say here.
No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think our first priority, somebody, I forgot which side it was on, made the statement about, don't look at this from an economic standpoint. We look at it and say, I've been on this committee for, what I think, 15 years, 100 years or something like that. But I don't think at one time did we ever look at something and say, hey, this might get somebody killed, but the county can make some money out of this, taxes. We've never looked at that. It's always going to be a safety issue, and that's the reason as we're looking at this road, I think that that is, and I might be speaking out of turn. Y'all can certainly speak, but I mean that's my number one thing is how safe is it going to be? Are we taking a bad situation and making it worse? Or are we taking maybe a bad situation and going to make it better? That's how I look at it. It's just the safety of the people going in and out. Because I don't care if the county makes $10 billion off of it. If it gets somebody killed because of it, that's the wrong thing.
We don't take into account tax revenue. That's not in our. We just don't do that. So, any other comments on traffic safety?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just want to make sure it's noted, because Mr. McKee brought up a good point. The applicant and the opposing parties have addressed the elements of a variance as standard elements, but remember, this is coming out of Chapter 26, so that's where it starts, and the preliminary inquiry is the safety of the road in question. So I just want to make sure that you tag it right. So you start there at safety, and then you go through your elements if you're going to trace with how the order should trace. I think y'all talked about that.
What you said.
Safety.
Safety is the number one issue.
Safety is number one for a variance from the road standards. It starts there. Yes. I just wanted to underscore that point because I've heard a lot of talk about those 4 elements, which are important and relevant, and they should be addressed. But you start with that safety of the whole of the road in question.
Yes.
So make sure you get that.
We have the ordinance right here. You've got that ordinance. The safety is the.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Well, on our variance standards and all, it says that they shall work with the county planning department and the county road department in an effort to eliminate or minimize the need for the variance after reasonable efforts. No other solution can be reached. So have we done all that? Sure we have. Tried to come up with a.
I think the last meeting or the meeting before is when the requirement was established. We would like both parties to do together and try to work it out.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's not been a resolution that's been reached yet.
Right.
The applicant has reached back out and requested that a decision be made. So they are due a decision by this body.
We owe them a decision. So, okay. Is there any other general discussion before we get into our questions?
So are we saying that with road, that we would, if we did approve the variance, that we would approve it subject to a satisfactory road study? Is that what we're saying?
I think we're saying if we approve the variance, then they would go through normal procedures with the county, various county departments, to prove that utilities can be run okay and show that they've got proper fire access, and to show that traffic is okay. They go
All
to
the
state,
normal stuff that they would.
all the normal
We're not the
things.
final say.
So
Yeah,
they're trying to get a variance before they go through all that process.
We're not the final say.
So, yeah, but that's part of the approval process that still has to happen.
With the paramount issue being safety and all, how would the board feel about putting conditions on a variance if it were granted, reducing the number of houses to be built? Maybe down to 10.
be determined by a traffic study.
I think I'd let the traffic study speak to that.
Yeah.
If
You'd rather
indeed
do
the
it
traffic
that way?
study said, okay, you get by with 10, that'd be up, you know.
Yeah.
Well, any
I was just thinking, I'm
attachments-
just thinking in terms of a compromise where it would reduce the amount of traffic on that road, which is,
Well, I think if we attach that, that he indeed is deeded that property. So he's got more property,
Yeah,
he's got more,
that could be a-
I see that as a win-win, other than, they don't want extra traffic on there. But to me, I see he's got going, if we stipulate that the developer has to deed that over to him.
That could be a stipulation.
Stipulation.
As we go through our questions, we ought to keep in mind what requirements do we want to put on this, so we go through a wordsmithing at the end that establishes conditions we're willing to approve this based on. Is that fair? Okay, ready to ask the questions? Yep. Okay. 4 questions. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Can I have a motion in the affirmative, please?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. I think it's been pretty well established that it's narrow, and he's got,
It's too narrow,
if he's gonna do something, he's gotta have a variance. I think
Without it, he can't do anything.
this very narrow view of the question, at the pinch point, I think there are exceptional conditions, and they don't exist elsewhere.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. Okay, it's 5-0, approved. These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. A motion, please.
So
In the
moved.
affirmative. Motion in the affirmative.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion. I think we just covered that.
I think this is unique
It's
to that
unique to this
situation.
property, it doesn't really apply elsewhere. All in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. It's 5-0 in favor. Because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property. Could I have a motion in the affirmative, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second, discussion. Excuse me.
We beat this horse to death.
Okay, motion in the affirmative, could we please, all in favor, please say aye, raise your hand. Okay, 5-0. D, authorization of variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Could I have a motion in the affirmative, please?
So moved.
Second. Okay, discussion. This is the nut of the whole.
This is where we need to put the condition in, I believe.
This is,
But we'll put the condition in when if we truly are going to approve this.
Right.
We haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten past 4th question. I'll put our conditions in. That fair?
That's fair.
I don't think we put conditions on this.
Yeah.
We put conditions on our,
That's fine.
if we do approve it.
and I think the question here is, does it harm John's Marine?
Okay.
I think that's,
Right, and I think-
under this one, I think that's what we have to discuss.
And this is where the safety issue comes in also.
And I think this is where we said that I think the developer has done quite a bit to minimize that harm to Johns Marine, and I think the amount of space they have, from what we see, to operate his business is not anything less than what he has now. So although there is an impact, it's minimum impact, I think. So it's not enough to say that it's going to severely hurt another business.
Okay. Are there any other comments on this? We've had a lot of input from a lot of people. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. 2, 3. We have 5 in favor. No opposed. So, in conclusion, based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved with conditions? So let's talk about conditions now. What conditions do we want to put on here? I would say that the developer follow through on their promise to deed whatever property is necessary to
To make them whole.
provide unimpeded access by John's Marine to the new right-of-way. Is that-
In reference to the piece of property that they're already using.
We need to get some words.
Yeah, do we need to stipulate or it refer?
Mr. Root, can you help us with what?
Mr. Attorney?
I think that the way you started phrasing it was good, that they would have unimpeded access to the new right-of-way.
We just kind of period at the end of that? We don't,
I think that's clear from the record.
I'm conscious that people in the future may look at this, may look at our proceedings here, and I want to make sure we're clear. That's all.
Can you have a substantial record from which any action can be taken? You may want to, you can anchor it to one of the maps if you want to do, particularly.
I think I can
carve out
refer to the maps as presented in this proceeding.
You could, yes.
And as represented by the developer, but is that the only kind of condition we want to put on here?
I'd just like to see John's boat, if he has more access, more room, more everything, that's kind of a win-win. I know they don't like the traffic increase, but, that's not our purview.
So,
Well, it is if we want it to be.
Yeah. But I don't know, you put the shaded area or whatever on this document or something, stipulate, huh?
Which one are you looking at?
That one where we got the grid line, all the grid lines and.
That one.
Yeah, that one.
How would the proponents, area that they said they would give him, how would the proponents ask the
Part of that's
proponents to
the
define
existing road, right?
Yeah, it's hard to see on
the
here.
wording
You
that
can
they would
see
want for the.
the edge of the concrete pad and the edge of the concrete drive at the top. I don't know. Can y'all see that, with the mouse on there?
We can see the mouse, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So
mouse.
that's the edge of the existing roadway, is my understanding.
That's right. And there's some property pins around there.
That's the concrete pad, and that's the concrete driveway. And
No, that's the house.
this is edge of pavement.
Extra properties.
This is the house.
And not in front of the shop.
It's the concrete pad.
One in the middle is the driveway to their
Extra
house.
properties in front of my mama's house, it's not in front of the shop.
That's the driveway to the house. I understand where we're
This one isn't even in front of the shop. The shop is the problem, not the house.
Yeah, we're down the concrete pad at the far right. And the issue is, the sliver of land in front of the concrete pad needs to be deeded to Mr. Ratliff, so that he has unimpeded access to the new road.
He already owns that.
He already owns all that property.
Right.
He owns it to the center line. Well, I think there's a portion
Well,
in here,
there's a
that's
portion
been,
of it.
the issue, is a portion in here that's not owned by him.
Yeah.
There's nothing there in front of the shop.
Hold it, folks, hold it, please, please.
Mr. Chairman, do we, if this has already been agreed to by the developer, do we really need to put it in our?
Well, I think we ought to go on record saying that's,
Yeah, and make them feel good about what they're getting.
Ask the developer to define how he would call the piece of property that he's gonna give to them. You can put it in that way.
I'd state the condition this way. We're going to, the proposed variance be approved based on the condition that the developer deed property that provides unimpeded access to the new road. Period. And is there anything else you want to add in there?
Yes. What, he says it's unimpeded, but they say it's not, so, I don't know, then they'll be coming back to, we don't want them circling back, but
Well, okay, so-
somehow, if it could
If
be.
there's no, I guess if there's no property, if we look at all the lines on here, if there's no property that has to be deeded, then nothing has to be done. But I think we want to make sure that there is unimpeded access to the road.
Right.
So whatever needs to be done to provide unimpeded access through all this, all the legal maneuvering that will go on around abandoning the old road and putting in the new road and all that, coming out of all that, he'll have unimpeded access to the road.
Is that
Consent?
is that the entire issue? Or is there more land that he's using in addition to that? We don't know.
I don't know of any. I mean, he has used the existing road.
And part of his.
And half of the road belongs to him,
Yeah.
and half of the road belongs to the developer. Okay?
They refer to trucks and cars being parked on their road.
Well, that's because half of it's theirs, because half the road is theirs. And now they're gonna move, the new road's gonna be moved down, if you look at this
The whole road's
diagram.
gonna be all theirs.
70% is owned by Vivi.
No, He will still own a lot of that property. He'll still own that half the road. But,
The whole road now.
he only, no, his property talking about right-of-way versus ownership. Ownership isn't gonna change except for a sliver there if it's necessary. But he's
What's the best way to, Mr. Attorney?
I think, and just tell me I'm wrong, again, not trying to substitute my judgment in for yours. I think what you're saying is first, it's gonna be subject, the order approved subject to proper abandonment procedures.
Okay.
Subject to compliance with, in our case, local ordinances and state law regarding road acceptance into the county roadway system. And subject to the developer granting, I don't know the corporate entity's name, but the marine shop, commercially reasonable access to the road to be constructed. I think you can leave it at that.
Okay. About the words say this: proposed variance be approved, subject to condition that proper state abandonment procedures are followed, road acceptance procedures are followed, and the developer grant reasonable access to the road, to include deeding any property necessary.
When you say the road, should it be the new road?
The new road, yes, the new road. Yes, sir.
Forgive me. And by the variance request, it says the 18.1 feet or 19.1 feet, whatever it is. It needs to, the right of way needs to be defined. It may be, down to that point, but where do we get back to 50? Our right of way needs to be defined.
Okay, so subject to proper definition of
Because-
the right of way.
Yeah.
There's not enough room there. To the map.
The variance is to have a smaller right of way.
Right. But where we come back and where that right of way is, because right now it could be the 18.1 feet all the way along on his property. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
By the variance request. It's only at that
But
one
once it
point.
goes to the pinch point, why does it?
Only at
then
that one
then
point
goes
when it
back
comes
out.
back. And again, like David said, it could be referenced to a drawing, but I just want to make clear on my end that I need, a clear
Cover
definition of
yourself.
what right of way is.
Yeah.
That's why there's multiple drawings. It doesn't add up.
Mr. Chairman, as I understood, the request for the variance is at this pinch point to go to 31.8. Then I believe, and this is how the normal road acceptance procedures would come in, that's where they, if you grant it, that's where they'd have a variance. Abandonment goes through, they start the process of getting the road accepted. The county's gonna say, all right, you've got this variance for this pinch point, you're gonna have to have your 50-foot right-of-way in these other areas. Show it to us. If you don't have a deeded right-of-way, you're gonna have to get it from folks. I mean, that's the way it customarily flows, so.
Not our call.
That's not our call, that happens later.
That happens
Right.
later.
And Mr. Lee handed to me, this is item 3 map, which shows, I mean, it's a good, I guess, item 3 does show the area in question, shows the pinch point, and it's really I think what the audience has said is accurate. He's gonna have access to that new road, subject to the old road being abandoned.
Yes.
But to the extent that it's not, surveyors differ at times. What you stated would accomplish that, to the extent abandonment doesn't give the Marine store full access to the road, you put it in there as a condition precedent that the developer has to. Right?
David, is the county going to initiate the abandonment litigation?
Well, 1 out of 5 times we do. It goes through the Transportation Committee first, so Kyle does a survey with the landowners in question, gets the signs posted, goes to the Transportation Committee, and they say, yeah, let's do that, or don't do it. And then, yeah, I certainly can initiate it. Oftentimes, in this case, the developer probably would. I'm not seeking to do the abandonment, and it's not required that the county do it. It can be a private party.
That's a court proceeding, anyone can go to court and ask that.
Yeah, any interested party.
Yeah, interested party, yes. No, it's not us.
That's
Not us.
I guess.
Okay, so, again, we've heard a lot of words, but what I'm still proposing is we use the words, variance be approved, subject to the proper abandonment procedures being followed, road acceptance, the road being accepted by the developer, by the county, and the developer have reasonable access, developer grant reasonable access, including deeding property as necessary, to allow access from Jimmy's Marine to the new road.
John's Marine.
Is that making sense?
John's Marine.
John's Marine, yes. I think the words we've used here in the
that good
proceedings, I think the intent is clear there, with everything that's said. Okay. Based on that, we have a motion and a second, and based on, we already got that, we got a motion and a second, discussion, we've put conditions on there. Could we have the vote, please? All those in favor of this variance, please
We have
raise
to
your hand.
vote on the, separately.
Oh, sure, yes, do you want to have it, okay, if you want to, conditions I read. Okay, you want to, move that you accept the conditions, all right?
Then we include those in the,
For a second.
motion.
Is there a second to that? Okay. All in favor of including those conditions to the variance approval process, please raise your hand. Okay. Conditions are approved, so then the question is, based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved with the conditions we talked? So all those in favor, please say aye. No, we've had that motion. Say, 5-0 in favor of approving the variance. That's all on that one. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Stand adjourned.